Racing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome back to Thursday nights here at Evolution Sim Racing for the opening round of our highly anticipated 7th season of our GT3 Championship tonight around the wonderful Donington Park circuit. So, I hope everybody watching at home is having a good night so far, and of course, a very good morning, afternoon, or evening to all of our GT3 drivers who are watching this session back after tonight is all said and done. So, in the commentary box, you have myself. However, sadly, you're going to be joining me going solo once again, as Mr. Dara Thacker had some other commitments to attend to tonight and can't be with us. But that's okay. It doesn't take away from any of the excitement that we're all feeling about being back on track and back racing these GT3 machines once again. And, on a personal note, I'm very grateful to be involved now on 2 occasions every week, covering both series on a Monday and on a Thursday. But more to come on that later. For now, though, we have a couple of formalities to attend to as the drivers finalise the final 7 minutes here on track before we head into our closed qualifying session. So, before we get there, let's take a look at the league sponsors for this series. A new look broadcast, and on a new night, of course, we have 3 sponsors for this season, of course. As always, the wonderful Kame, who provide our season trophies. Many of the drivers will be familiar with how this works by now, but we have quite a few new names in and around the paddock and in the server these days. So, Kame supply the trophies that we have on offer. Those will be available up and down the grid. The top 3, the top 5, across the teams, across everywhere. We'll go over the formalities properly in due course, for the big thanks to those guys, as always. Alongside them, it's Hussein Sarakadezla's GP2 group and Chris Keenan's Keenan Eco Energy. So appreciate both of those guys for doing what they can to support the series. And as always, if anyone's interested in getting involved in sponsoring Evolution Sim Racing, get in touch with James Bostock, a familiar face around the server, so I'm sure you guys will all know how and where to find him. So here we are then, as we said, back once again. It feels like it's been a little while since we got underway, which it has. It's been a couple of weeks since myself and Dara closed out the GT4 season around Zolder, and we're back, and I've been very excited to get going in what is my first broadcast covering GT3 machines. So, we arrived tonight then at the Donington Park GP layout for 2 30-minute races. No mandatory pit stops tonight, and the drivers will be going from lights out all the way through to the checkered flag. And we have a new reverse top 18. That's correct, reverse top 18 tonight, which will feature throughout the entire season and every single one of our sprint weekends, which will be, the ones that aren't an hour long. Can you believe it? So tonight, the guy who finishes in P18 will start the second race on the front row on pole position. So lots on offer. Some of the slower guys getting an opportunity to get the elbows out and defend behind some of those quicker guys making their way through the field. Next week, we head to Zolder. So those who competed in the GT4 series won't be too dissimilar with this, because they only raced there a handful of weeks ago. Then we head over to the classic Road America circuit before our month's worth, in fact 5 races there in a row, all across there in the United States. So twice Europe, 5 across the United States, Road America, Virginia, then Long Beach, which is a debut, I believe, for Evolution Sim Racing, halfway through the championship season. Bright and sunny on the Long Beach. Now, is that California or is that Florida? I'm not too sure. Pretty sure it's one of them, though. Might be Miami, but I'll have to double check. Then we had to Sebring, which is something that we all know very, very well, something that we're all very familiar with. Then Circuit of Americas. Cannot go wrong with a few laps around COTA before we head back to Europe for the Italian double header around the Circuit d'Imola and the Circuit de Mugello, and then off to Australia for the season finale around the hills and the mountains, shall I say, of Bathurst in what will be an epic season finale. I think we finished in Bathurst, was it maybe season 3? So quite a while ago, over a year ago, probably at this point, we finished the season there, and of course we can't drop that round. So drivers who want to score points will have to show up if they want to finish their season strong. So then, there's no standings to run through this evening, obviously, because the championship is just getting underway. So we can take a look now at the final 3.5 minutes of practice and familiarise ourselves with some of the old names, some of the new names that are here in this new look Season 7. And we have quite a few drivers with us tonight, 43 on track at the moment. And a new look overlay as well, thanks to Chaz Draycott and the work that he does over on Chaz Draycott Media. In fact, I forgot to mention that this is, of course, Split B of the GT3 series. We've gone from 60 drivers to 120 seats sold out in a matter of days. And in the Split A category, that will be held right now over on the Chaz Draycott Media YouTube channel. That's Chaz Draycott. If anyone wants to watch both streams at once, be my guest. You'll have the elite drivers up there with the Premier guys, with the Pro drivers, elite and Pro. And then you're with myself for the Premier and the Evo drivers here tonight. So, plenty of cars, plenty of choice, and you'll see up and down the timing tower, iRacing have done us... In fact, it might not be iRacing's fault, actually. It might be SDK's fault. They haven't given us the Acura logo yet, so the drivers who do not have that badge next to their name on the timing tower, the likes of Sarah Cadezza, Sheesby and Eggert there, will be the ones driving the Acura during the session tonight. So, John Ludbrook leading the way as things stand then at the top of the Premier Division. And it's good that we finally split up these sessions, because obviously now it gives some of these guys an opportunity who wouldn't normally be battling on for legitimate race wins. Obviously, many of these guys will have had a class win, but I'm pretty sure none of these guys actually will have ever crossed the line first in an official ESR League race. So, could be firsts tonight for some of these guys. And here we see Mr. Robin Aston, the Camry GP2 Porsche driver. He's making his way around the final sector now in toward the S's through 9 and 10. He's currently up on his personal best in the second sector. This will really be the last full lap that he gets to complete. Average lap time's 1:27 at the moment. He's pulled off to the side of the road, and that'll be him done. Anyone who hasn't crossed the line already won't get an opportunity to set another lap time. There it is, an absolutely packed pit lane. Not too many drivers out on track at the moment. We do have this man, Robin O'Brown, who met us toward the end of our GT4 season. Another one of the GP2 group cars, this time the Suma GP2 team. Let's not get confused with those guys. Well, I mean, I'm familiar with them, but for the new guys watching, we have the Camry lot and we have the Suma lot. Both of them for the GP2 team at the moment. I'm going to do my best to run through the lineups as we sort of familiarise ourselves with some of these drivers, to put some names to the teams and the teams to the teammates, and hopefully we can become a bit more familiar by the time that the session ends tonight. So at the moment then, Edward Adcock is the man at the top of the Evo standings. He is actually in P8 overall, so he's got a good time. Currently a 127.45. And so he could be mixing it in with some of the Premier drivers. At the moment, got 7 in front and 5 behind before we find P2 in the Evo class of James Howarth down there. 3.5 tenths off the back of the Evo class leader as things stand. And as the checkered flag falls to conclude the first practice session of the season, this is where it really starts to kick off. And we're going to have 4 laps of closed qualifying, around 15 minutes here at the Donington Park GP circuit. So as always, a big thanks to everyone who is with us in chat. 30 people in at the moment and lots of new names up and down in the comms. So I'll be checking out the comments as often as I can, but obviously the primary goal here is to cover the action. So yeah, I've already seen Luis reminded me that it is California Long Beach, so very good, appreciate that. And I should have stuck with my first option, shouldn't I? But here we go, we have lots and lots of drivers making their way around the grid now. Let's ride on board with someone new, Danny Mulder. He hasn't seen him on track at the moment. In fact, forgive me for this, I just need to refresh everybody's trading paints, and that's not the best livery I've ever seen. So let's cut away and go to Anthony Flamel, who is in a nice red and black Porsche, nice and easy on his way around the track. Privateer, so making his debut with us tonight, hasn't been able to find himself a team, sadly. And now we have all but 10 or so drivers out on the track, obviously sharing the track at the moment in time. Closed qualifying, meaning that they're all lapping. Some of them will be driving at the same piece of tarmac at the same time, but it means that we don't get in the way of one another. And anybody on an out lap or a slow lap or a cool lap can't get in the way of any of those guys on a hot lap. It'll be interesting to see how it gets on actually with the new DRS system. Now that's not the drag reduction system, before I hear you asking. It's the debris refresh system, I think it's called. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but if it isn't, then I'm going to start calling it that. So the DRS system that iRacing added to the game in this new season last week means that any dirt, gravel, grass, anything that gets kicked up off the track will be brought back across this racing surface. And when that happens through a corner, for example, if you run through a gravel trap and drive that back across a corner on the tarmac, that can really unsettle the car. If you get a bad entry, it's really going to go from bad to worse in the mid-corner as you rumble over the gravel that's been laid across the surface. So it's another dimension for these guys to have to deal with. First we got the marbles, then we got the rain, and now we've got sort of, how do we say, off-track debris being sprayed back across the circuit. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects the drivers around what is a pretty tight and twisty circuit actually. 60 cars possible, only 45 or so in the session tonight. But yeah, definitely not the kind of track that you want to go 3 wide at, especially through the S section, through the crane of curves and the old hairpin. Through the final hairpin here at the Melbourne corner, turn 11 for Mr. Anthony Flamel. Have the first lap time on the board. It's the 1:25 machine of Robin Aston, setting a 1:26.827, which is the provisional pole time at the front of the field. All the Premier drivers coming in now. There's Anthony's time, 1.6 seconds the difference. So a big margin to overcome for him. Hussein Sarakadez next across the line. He's only just shy of 2 tenths behind the current provisional pole man. But Tenkat there, 8 seconds off the pace, not a lap that he will remember. Probably a nice slow lap for him, maybe made a mistake early doors and thought he would do a little bit more preparation than that before he set away on his first proper flying lap. The Audi, it looks and it sounds good. I'm not sure if it drives too well in my personal opinion. We've tried it once before. Wasn't too stable on the fixed setup when it first came out, but of course With these cars having open setups in this series, I'm sure every single car will have some level of viability. Let's say even the Ford, currently driven by James Howarth, who leads the way in the Evo class at the moment. What an absolute skyscraper that thing is as he makes his way around the final corner. Let's ride on board with a lap with James and hope that the engine doesn't blow our speakers out. Okay, so a quick audio check there. It seems like we're good to go, and he's already through the first couple of sections now, up through turn 5 at Starkey's Bridge, up through turn 6, which is a flat-out kink over to the left-hand side before a tricky braking zone through McLean's at 7. And you got to look up and over the crest before a little bit of a double right-hander, kind of. It's really only one corner, but it's got two apexes. There's the first, there's the second. Keep the steering locked on, and then let it run out wide. Over to the left-hand side, down the second straight on the lap. And now, probably the trickiest corner. You want to brake on the curb, but you don't want to take too much of the inside curb, otherwise you run the risk of picking up an invalidation, potentially even a slowdown. The second downhill section of the track, heavy on the stoppers, get it slowed down. First gear, yes, he does take first gear through the Melbourne hairpin. Up to the gears now, heading down toward turn 12 at Goodhart's to complete the lap. Nice and slow down. He gets it. And he has been dropped down the order. A second now separates him from the front row of his class. Is Mr. Howarth going to improve? Yes, he does. Slots it in behind Edward. 6/10, nearly 7. The difference between those two top Evo drivers at the moment. All the while, Robin Aston still leads the way, but only half a tenth away from Mr. Ludbrook in behind there in P2. Here's a question, if anybody in the chat has any idea. We've got Mr. Ewan main here, but in the server, he's down as Evan main. So, if anyone can correct me whether it's Ewan or whether it's Evan, that will be handy. But it does say Ewan, both on the timing sheet and in the timing tower. So, I'm going to go with Ewan for the sake of the broadcast. We can get that corrected next week. Or maybe you just made a mistake in the server, but I would doubt that you would do that with your own name. Regardless, he's on a flying lap at the moment. Just about keeps it on the racing surface as he heads under the bridge now. This will be possibly his final lap, actually. And he's currently a second away from pole. And look at that, actually. All the cars there, the top 16 in the Premier Class, separated by only 1 second. And even the top 10 separated by just over half a second. So a lot can and probably will change as some of these guys conclude their qualifying sessions here. 7 minutes to go, but only a handful of these guys came out the pit lane late, and so will probably be finished on track well inside those 7 minutes. Robin Gregg has just stepped up the timing sheet. Oh, he's missed the apex there, sadly for Ewan. So it might not be an improved time. He did improve in Sector 2 on this lap, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Let's see as he comes around the final corner. He's going to cross the line and cut the beam. Is it going to be enough to promote him any higher up the order? Just 1 or 2 positions there into within a second. 1:27.7 for the BMW driver. A bit of a wobble there by the Porsche. Didn't quite maximise that entry, did he there? Mr. Bruno Silva. Definitely maximised the entry there though. Oh, and a little snap, a double snap, and that's him round. The Porsche, no damage done. He'll kick up a little bit, and I think that is him done. Yes, it is. He says, well, that's me finished. And I think that is most of these drivers finished. Actually, here's Mark van Mulken making his way around into the final couple of corners. Now, following him, oh, James Pallett just shot up the order there, right onto the provisional front row of the Evo class. 4/10 away from Edward Adcock. Edward had a very strong preseason, actually, and so half part of me thought that he might get a promotion, but with having 38 drivers registered in the Premier class, it would have been a bit too much for him to have added nearly 40 drivers in one class and only 20 in the other. Mark van Mulken cannot improve and stays where he was, and this is the final of the two drivers. We've got Ryan Blackie here and James Pallett also on the track at the moment. Try and get everybody into the timing sheet, so let me change that a little bit. Oh, my mistake. That's what we need to do. There we go. We've got everybody now visible on the timing sheet, which is exactly what we like to see. Doesn't look like that was an improved time by Ryan. And James, he's about to cross the line in his McLaren. Looks like he got a slow exit there, already on the left-hand side of the track. Lovely livery by the look of that. And he, too, crosses the line. So then, a very quick session, really there. Still 4 minutes to kill before we get underway tonight. I guess we could do a quick rundown of some of the teams, although I might not be the quickest. So, the likes of Scott Kostrick, Jonathan Provost, and Robin Noel Brown team up together in the Suma GP2 Porsche team. I'm looking at some of the other... bearing in mind, of course, the teams can be split between the two classes. So some of the drivers that are currently going on over on the Chaz Draycott Media YouTube channel in Split A could well be the teammates of the drivers in this session as well. Looking for some new team names here. We've got the Moonshiners Racing Club, Fuzzy Racing, and Hansa Racing with Justin Habermacher, who is not here with us tonight, I don't believe. The new team, the latest entry with Jarmo van der Meer, the Veraco Esports Team White. That was a late entry earlier today. LS Racing with Pete Paver. The Rage Against the Game. Very good. That's actually Ewan's team. So, Race Against the Game Esports. Sim Racing Team Lowlands 1, and there will be a 2 somewhere. Yep, there it is. Sheep Valley Racing. That's with Jan Ostberg. And the Axis Sim Sports. A New Look DXT. DXT obviously very familiar with Evolution Sim Racing, but they've now gone from Emerald and Magenta, or Cyan, and now they've gone for Luna and Solar. So, yeah, New Look DXT as well. Who else do we have? We also have the Quartermass Motorsports team, Team Nubish, the Escuderia Panther team of Wesley Van Ren. Or is that perhaps Wesley Van Ron? Let's see. Yeah, so quite a few new guys up and down the team, which is great to see. We've had obviously a huge intake of drivers being able to fill 120 seats. I'd be interested to know how many are over in Chaz's session, but something would tell me we'll have at least 80 drivers with us tonight. Okay. So it is Evan. However, it looks as though Evan has, because the SDK timing sheet uses their name from iRacing, I believe, and not the name that we have in the server. So just double check that with him before next week to see if his iRacing name is somehow incorrect, because I don't think I can actually overwrite that. I'm going to have to leave. Well, I've got 40 seconds. Maybe I can try, but I don't want it to come it's going to pop up here, I think. Yeah, let's just move that out of the way and do this in the background. There we go. All sorted. That must have just been a typo on our side then, because that's his name in the server as well, I believe. Okie dokie. Right, well that's good. At least we got that sorted. That's one more thing ticked off the list. And now we begin to grid up before we head around for the formation lap, which will get us underway very, very shortly. So that's right on board at the moment with the pole man, and we can run through the grid as the drivers begin to load in. Safety car will take us for only half a lap, actually, so we better start running through the grid right now. So, Robin Aston set the fastest time of the session for the Camé GP2 Porsche team, a 1:26.767. Just half a tenth ahead of his teammate John Ludbrook, the 1:44 machine, locking out the front row of the grid for the Camé GP2 Porsches. Ahead is the Suma GP2 Porsche of Robin Noel Brown, so very good for him. He leads the way ahead of Austin Grafe, the American driver, 2.5 tenths off pole position. Hussein Sarakat Tesla, the Suma GP2 NSX driver, the first leading the way in the Acura, ahead of Jan Ostberg for Sheep Valley Racing, the top 6. On pole in the Evo class, it's Edward Adcock for Vortex Sim Sports, ahead of Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing. Is that meant to say Cult? That's probably supposed to say Cult. Ahead of him, it's Baz McKeem and James Bostock, the top 10, with Scott Kostrick and James Robinson. Ahead of James Pallett, the second man on the Evo grid. Ahead of Dean Sheesby, Matthias Egog, Jan Nagy and Evan Main. Alan Conrad's the top 18 ahead of James Howarth and Klaas Janssen. And then we roll on through the grid to find Gareth Newton and Danny Weir on the 11th row. Ahead of Sander Tabbers and Bruno Silva, Clyde Vella and Mark van Mulken in P26. Andrea Montine ahead of Hendrik Kuhlen and Dominique Backhouse ahead of Ryan Blackie, the top 30, with Robin Gregg. Jelma van der Meer, can't fit his name on the timing sheet, ahead of Anthony Flamel and Ryan Abbott in P34. Bert Tenkad ahead of Andy Chell and Carl Whitehouse, Robert Savage, Danny Mulder, Nicky Mehring, all the way down in P40. And we have Pete Paver, the Brazilian driver there, ahead of Louis Plath and Stuart Lindsay for Silver Lindsay Racing in P43. And that felt like a lot of names that I've never said before, but we got there in the end. One thing I did want to check was that team name. Liam Fraser. Club. It does say club. I think it's just been chopped off. And not cult. Of course. Lovely, lovely looking livery there on behalf of Mr. Robin Aston at the front. And the pace car has peeled in. And we're going to be underway. Are we going to adhere to the start procedure? It looks as though we're okay. And he's got a great launch off the start. And it's Robin Aston who heads into turn 1 ahead of John Ludbrook. And then Robin Noel Brown with the same. Sarah Cadezza. There's a battle going on there between Jan Osberg and Liam Fraser. And there's a car that's around. It's Dean Sheesby, I think, he's been put in the wall. Someone is around and it's action already off the start. Yes, it is. Let's join back in the middle of the pack here and let's bring up the timing sheet so we don't lose track of what's going on. A little bit of smoke. Someone's definitely gone off over to the left-hand side. Is Aston Hussein? That's him. The Suma GP2 NSX car. He's off and over the gravel, so he started right toward the top. And he's now dropping down the order. Got to keep himself busy and not let those guys sneak up the inside of him. He's done well to recover there, but that's not what he'll have wanted. Down 9 places at the start and under all sorts of pressure from the drivers behind. A great battle here between the Mustang on the outside and the Porsche on the inside. That's Bruno Silva, who's going to just back out of that one. Another Mustang in. We've got some side-by-side action ahead as we head through the bus stop. And the NXX slow there. A couple of guys might be picking up drive-thrus on the way through that chicane for the first time. Danny Weir looking to go around, up the inside there. A bit of contact. Oh, many cars involved in contact there. Danny Weir rocking that new Cars livery. Looks very good, Danny, I must say. He sort of showcased it earlier in the week, but it just looked good out on track. So lots happening at the back as well. Look at that, a whole cluster of cars as they came around the final corner there. We've got two wide here between Robert Savage, who's just backed out, and he's going to allow Robin Gregg ahead to take that position. So a pretty frantic start to the opening lap of the race then. Let's ride on board with the man at the front of the pack. It's Robin Aston, who's done well to hold on to that lead off the start. And he's ahead of his teammate John Ludbrook. Robin Noel Brown in the sister team also there as well. So it's a 1-2-3 for Porsche at the moment. 1-2-3 for the GP2 lot, separated between Kame and Suma. And here's Edward Adcock, who's leading the way in his Acura. Heading through the chicane now for the second time. Nice colourful livery. That's himself there. Little purple, blue and green. Nice on the stoppers. And he looks to set after the Mercedes of Liam Fraser ahead, although he needs to be careful. There's no need for him to do too much. He's got three Premier drivers in behind him who are not his race, so if he can stay ahead, then that's good for him, but he doesn't need to do too much to try and catch up with that lead pack of 5 cars ahead. Dean Sheesby here under all sorts of pressure from Hussein Sarika Desla in the Acura there, which sounds very good. Haven't really heard a great deal of this. In fact, a good showcase as the Ford makes a little bit of a mistake. That's Alex Coenraads here, who's going to allow the room hopefully as they head through the S section at the start of the lap through turn 2, and now through turn 3. You can hear that Alex is still there, and he's just reappearing back into the picture. Huss is probably going to get that one done, but Alex is still coming, and he's got the run up the hill. He's going to be on the outside line as they head through turn 7 at the top of the hill, and Huss just has to back out, let him through. He's going to have to make that one happen at another corner, but it was a mistake ahead from Alex that allowed Huss into his sights there. But we know that Huss has got the pace, and Alex has made another mistake. Huss is going to sneak on through. Job done. Sarika Desla up one place, and he's got a fight on his hands now to try and get back up to where he started at the front. Could be a good switch back there. The two Fords going side by side. We're going to be inviting some sort of 4-wide scenario here potentially. BMW on the brakes, just about gets it slowed down, does Evan Main, gets it turned in nicely, and one of those cars there on the outside, I'm not quite sure who that is in the Ford. That's Alex Coenraads. He's had a pretty disastrous lap. He dropped down at turn 1, and now he's dropping a few more places, heading through the final corner as Evan looks to make his way around the outside. It's Ford leads BMW, leads Ford, leads BMW, so I'm not quite sure the characteristics of the Ford, but I know the BMW is a monster in a straight line. So it could be two very different characteristics of cars there as they head now down through the S section. That's right on board with the Ford. A little bit of a gap ahead to the likes of Klaas Janssen and James Howarth in P4 in the Evo class. So these guys mixing it in between both of the classes. Gareth Newton's got a good run here. He's up the inside of Bruno Silva, who gets the job done. You can see him in the rear view mirror there, dipping back up the inside, and Gareth defends and covers the inside line nicely. Gets it tucked in. That's him up into still in P5 actually. Got himself past a Premier driver ahead, but he's got some cleaner air, not clean air, but some cleaner air in front of him now to work with. Oh, that might be a slowdown for both of them here. Klaas Janssen, he is indeed slowing down. What about the Ford? What's the Ford saying up front? Because he also went off the other side of the circuit, but it looks as though they're keeping it to these guys are getting very close to one another I don't want to cast any judgment, but it's probably only going to be a matter of laps before there's a little bit of a coming together with somebody, and that's our leader. Robin Aston, race leader, sideways in the barrier. And we're going to have to go back and see what happens. And there it is, just as I cut away. Evan has had an issue. He's off on the side there. He's going to have to back it up nicely. Has to be careful with the rejoin. He does a good job. That's a whole cluster of cars that you do not want to see, but thankfully they'll exit on the right-hand side of the track. He's okay to rejoin. He's got pressure from Louis Plath here, who's in that lovely livery, actually. Look at this. Lovely sort of cyan chrome there. Absolutely a big fan of that one. Let's take a look at that in a little bit more detail if we get the shot for it. There it is. SimLab sponsored. Love that one. So yeah, we'll have to go on back and see what happened to Robin Aston there at the front. Let me see if I can find that one, because he went all the way down the order. It might be this one. Let's go and take a look. Here it is then. He's heading now in toward the hairpin. Does he just get a snap of oversteer perhaps on the brakes? Oh dear me, what happened there? That looked like nothing even went wrong. Let's see from his point of view. Let's listen. That to me looks like he's had to make maybe an emergency exit from the sim. Doesn't look like anything to do with the racing. I fear that something might have happened in person that I needed to attend to. I wonder if anybody can tell me in chat if anything's happened to him there. So that promotes Mr. Ludbrook then. He is in a bit of an unfamiliar scenario at the moment then. I'm not sure if he's ever led the field, especially not in ESR. And so let's hope that the curse doesn't continue for the Camé cars or the GP2 cars with the pair of them now, Robin and John toward the front. Let's hope these guys can continue on. Still 22 minutes to go in this opening round. It feels like it's been a little bit longer than that. We've seen a lot already. Is he going to be under a little bit of pressure here from his teammate? Let's see. He's getting a little bit closer. We need to go back to the interval times. I apologise for that. Let's bring those up so you guys can see who's gaining where. And soon I think I might cut back to the incident that we saw earlier with Evan. But for now, we're right on board with the two Suma cars. They were going jousting. That's a little bit of a snap on the rear there. It's not going to upset John too much, but Robin will put him under some pressure. We could see a move for the lead of the race any time soon. That looks like another chicane slowdown for Mr. Austin. If and he's just about going to get a slow down around the outside of that Alpha 1 esports machine of Nicky Mehring, that is. We've obviously got the Alpha 1 guys toward the front of the elite standings over in Split A. And he goes deep, does Nicky. Going to keep it? No. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. That's an incident, I believe. Is that again with Evan? I think it was. Yeah, Evan been in the wars. That was not his fault. The car spun around. And then it was just right in his path. Let's go back now while we can and see what happened to Evan earlier on. We said it was going to be a matter of time before this cluster of cars came together. Let's see if it's of his own accord. The BMW up the inside very late. Yeah, very, very late. And then everyone does quite well to avoid. Gets himself off the circuit quite well. Let's see, under no pressure from the BMW in behind. And then, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure about that one. Not so sure. Oh. Here we go then. As we left them earlier, the lead pairing are bumper to bumper nearly here through the S section, down toward the old hairpin, and now up through McLean's already at turn 7, and John will be very, very wary. These two guys may well be sister team. but they're not direct teammates, so I'm sure that Robin will fancy his chances here to get past John. Let's ride on board for a moment and see where we can pick out some mistakes, where some of these guys might be able to make an advantage over the other. It's deep by John ahead. Robin's going to look to capitalise this if he can get the traction right. And remember, of course, on the open setups, these guys can manipulate their own ABS, their own TC. And obviously they can do it corner by corner if they so choose. I'm not sure many of them will be. But on those tricky hairpins where you've still got to lock the steering on, you might want to adjust the traction control. That could really, really benefit you, and it could also help save some tyre toward the end of the race, bearing in mind we're not even at half race distance yet. We're not even at quarter of the sessions distance yet. So much racing yet to unfold, and so much has happened already. But we're definitely going to see a move for the lead in the next couple of laps. I'm sure of that. It could be coming up now. He's got a good run here. Is it going to be enough time before they reach the braking zone at 7? Is John going to force himself to defend the inside line? He just lift off the throttle a little bit there, does Robin. Doesn't want to put too much pressure on. Doesn't want to send it where he doesn't have to. Could have spoke too soon there if he put it in that little pocket, but he backs out. Maybe these two guys are just going to try and run away. They've currently got over a second to the car behind, who we can just see in that rear view mirror there. Still definitely sniffing around the gearbox, but not putting these two under any sort of immediate pressure. Definitely stronger through the chicane there is Robin. He'll know that. He can try and pick a point there to get a good run out, and he knows from last lap that he was stronger on the brakes. Oh god, you can tell that he's stronger on the brakes after the last lap. But all of this little kerfuffling that's going on here will only invite Liam Fraser, who's now dropped within the second in that Mercedes. So these two guys have got to start strategizing a little bit if they want the best result for the team. Maybe it's best not to battle too much, because these guys are going to start closing that gap, and before you know it, you could have the best part of 5 or 6 drivers involved in this battle for the lead. There was an incident a little bit earlier on for Clyde, who've gone very deep into the chicane. Oh, and it's the slightest little tag around the outside by the Ford, and then just kind of gets driven through there by the Porsche, who was unwilling to release the throttle pedal. And since then, there hasn't been any more incidents to report, which is always good to see. Now, I don't want to cut away from this, but I also don't want to spend too much time with the same two drivers, because we've got a lot of people who are new. I want to give them some screen time. But I also don't want to miss the overtake if we can avoid it. We're once again heading through into the chicane, where we know Robin looked stronger than John on the entrance. And now, is Robin going to think about it here? Because he knows after the last 2 laps, John's made a mistake here. Nearly went into the back of him, braking a little bit deep. No, we're not thinking about it this time. What about the exit? All the while, that Mercedes getting a little bit closer, waiting for his moment. He just might be quite happy to sit there and wait for these guys to make their own mistakes. Scott Kostrick very close in behind the BMW of James Robinson as they exit around the final corner. Let's ride on board with the other Suma GP2 Porsche driver, the Scotsman, 101 of Kostrick, who's been around with us for a hell of a long time. I think he was even in another series that some of us did a long time ago. And so it's good to see him battling toward the front now. Definitely in with a chance is Scott of getting himself some race victories at some point throughout the season. But in terms of who's going to come out on top and lead the standings at the moment, obviously we have a pretty good idea. But throughout the season, with the open setups in different cars, some tracks will lend themselves better to certain cars, and some drivers will lend themselves better to certain tracks. So plenty on offer. But Scott, at the moment, one of our closest drivers apart from these guys. Bruno, who's going to go up, and is he going to think about going around the outside of Gareth Newton? No, he's not. He's going to switch it back, and what was a lovely move there by Mr. Silva, the Portuguese, Portuguese driver. Oh, and that's a damaged front there of the Newton machine there in behind. That's probably where the lack of downforce has come from, and Mark could really think about capitalising on this. He's having a look, chinking from right to left, thinking about it. Just giving Gareth something to think about as he keeps checking up in his mirrors. And even with that downforce issue at the front there, well, a bit of an early break there, that could throw somebody off. And he's made another move here on Bruno, so I'm surprised with that lack of downforce, unless there was a slowdown there. Bruno's lost that position. Retaken by Gareth Newton, who's out of class, remember. Not inside the same class, and again, we could see Mark van Mulken here getting the pair of them if they're not careful. Just takes one good switchback, get the power down nice and early. He could get himself a run here down toward the old hairpin. Let's see as he enters turn 1. Gets it tucked in nicely. Yes, he does. The Porsche ran a little bit wide there over the gravel and over the grass. Hasn't quite got the run that he could have. But Bruno has got that move done once again. And here's the run. Here's the run that we were talking about. Is it going to be enough with that stricken Acura ahead? Is Gareth going to defend the inside line? He made a mistake this time last lap against Bruno, not this time. Oh, and a little bit of a snap of oversteer there by the Ferrari. That's just going to upset that run ever so slightly. And for now, that battle will rage on. So a good battle here, which is down quite, a little bit far down in the Evo class, but nonetheless still plenty of points on offer. We ride on with Ryan Abbott, who's making his debut in a league official with us tonight. He's got the likes of Dominique Backhouse ahead of him and Pete Beaver. And he's got Clyde Veyer, who made a mistake earlier on, as we saw, just with some slight contact through this corner. And he's now dropped down a few places. Battle at the front still ongoing, and the battle that we left between Newton and Van Mulken is still going on as we would expect. And Van Mulken thought about it. He's maybe going to make the move. Gareth's going to try and hang it around the outside. No room left. Gareth decided that he wasn't going to back out even with the damage, and that's 2 cars off the circuit there, sadly. Right on board from the perspective of Gareth here. You can see the car is going to appear on the right side of the picture. Gets the move done, and then, yeah, Gareth just doesn't back out. No overlap, I'm afraid, there. And that would be one where you would expect the car on the outside to back out from that one. Oh, we just caught a little bit of a flash of a headlight there by Dean Sheesby up the inside, and there's another more contact. And oh, maybe don't stop on the track like. Let's see as these guys come around the corner, what's he going to be met by? A slow car on the racing line. I mean, it's just not what you want to do. Why would you stop on a live circuit? I'll never know, but he was trying to be sporting, but it's just caused confusion for the drivers in behind him, and he's got going anyway. So that's Hussein Saraka Desla around, and you could kind of see it coming. There was a little bit of impatience, I think, with a flash of the headlights. Let's just see it again. Oh, not this one, sorry. Don't need to look at that again. If my thing would... There we go. This is the one that we want. So Dean probably thinking, let me jump on by. And he half thinks about it, half commits, understeers. Yeah, and then... Yeah, we'll not talk about that. So I was going to say earlier as well that there was, must have been a slight drama for Robin toward the front, because he's dropped off ever so slightly, not by much, he's still there, but as you can see now, the gap between P1 and P2 is about the same as it is between P2 and P3, so definitely a change for position. I'm, well, not sure of it, I hope so, but I would like it for the entertainment of the stream to get a change of the lead. But John holding his own at the moment, 8.5 minutes left to go. Still 19 drivers on the lead lap in the Premier Division. Remember, we have the top 18 to think about as well, so let me bring up the timing sheet in order and we can get a look at who's going to be in that. At the moment, Gareth Newton will be the man to start on pole position, and he has a huge gap down to Danny Muddler, so at the moment it looks as though it's going to be Gareth who's got a bit of damage, but it's going to be enough to maybe stick him on the front row of the grid. And look at that, Edward Adcock there toward the top. He's got the pace for sure of these Premier drivers, and he's obviously 5 seconds off the back of this pack, and he's going to be getting himself involved with some of those guys, the likes of Jan Osberg, James Bostock, James Robinson, who are all within a second and a half of the lead Evo driver. And this pack that we're watching now getting closer and closer after every single corner. Before we know it, there's going to be a move. Oh, and he's looking to go around the outside. The room has been left, rightly so, by Robin Noel Brown. And the move has been done. We said it might have come if he didn't get it done earlier, which he didn't, Robin. He had an opportunity to overtake John, thought better of it, backed out. And now it's come back to haunt him slightly because he's lost the lead. Well, he's lost P2, sorry. Oh, and he's thinking about a big send. Liam sees it coming, gets the switch back. Oh, that was very close racing between the two of them. Let's ride on board with that. That was very smart by Liam to just open up the steering nice and early to let the dive-bombing Porsche come through without any contact. But Robin did manage to get it stuck to the tarmac. Didn't drift too far wide of the apex, and he's actually managed to reclaim that place. Late and brave, but worthwhile when you can make it stick, and that's exactly what Robin's done on this occasion. Here's a man that we haven't seen so far this evening, Mr. James Bostock, the organiser of all of this, alongside myself and Rob Mackay, who help him out with a few things, but most of the credit, well, 90% of the credit, really has to go to him. He does the advertising, sources the drivers, creates the rulebook, you know, comes up with everything that you guys are seeing right now, that you see in the server. And he's coordinated between myself and Mr. Draycott over there in Split A to bring on what is, in our opinion, one of the best places to race GT3s anywhere on iRacing, especially with 120 drivers going at it at the same time across 2 splits. And as we speak, he's potentially going to try and get a move done on Jan Osberg, someone that we haven't seen too much of. The battle of the Porsches at the moment with James Robinson and Scott Kostrick there close in behind as well. It's been a good day so far for the Suma drivers. James has gone deep there and is going to allow Scott potentially to make a pass up the inside, and he's been driven off the circuit. He didn't really, don't think Scott was quite clear of the overlap there. Let's just take a look at this one and see what we think. To me, it looked as though James, although he made a mistake, he was still there as he exited the corner. Was he? Yes, he was. He was entitled to the room, and Scott came over. And sadly, that's what you get in the barrier, and that's Scott's night over. It went from good to bad, and it's gone to worse as he comes off into the pit lane. And the battle continues, though, between James and Jan Osberg. James Robinson just thinking about it further on in the back, and Huss is about to make a move around the outside into the hairpin. Late turn in by the Porsche. Got to think about going all the way around the long way, which he has done. The Acura gets it stuck. He's going to be on the inside line as they head down toward the braking point at turn 1, just after the pit entry line finishes. That's the Acura up the inside. It's going to have to leave the room as the car is still there. Backs out. Gets the job done. And now, Robert Savage under pressure from Burt in behind here, the Audi driver. This is a battle for P6 and P7 in the Evo class. So it was an out-of-class battle with Hussein. Now back to an inter-class battle with Burt and Robert here. And look at this. At the front, Robert Noel Brown is still defending ahead of Liam Fraser, who I think momentarily got himself in front at, well, around the apex, but he's dropped back in behind the Porsche. 3 minutes to go. We're going to get another 2 or 3 laps here probably. So 3 minutes to go. Ludbrook will be so pleased that Liam has caught up with this pack to put some pressure on Noel Brown in behind to allow him to hopefully drive off into the distance. Still less than 1 second ahead though, so one slight snap of oversteer can really cost you around a circuit like this with grass on either sides. You get a bit of a snap, you drive off the circuit, before you know it, you've done a 360 and you've lost yourself 10 seconds of race time. In the background, we're just about to see James Bostock. There he is, reappearing. He'll fancy his chances big time to try and get himself into the top 4. As things stand, it's Jan Osberg leads Bostock, leads Robinson in the top 6. As we can see, I'll switch back to the classes just so that we can finalise that. Someone's just fallen down the order. I'm not sure who that was. Bit of a bump over the curbs there by James, and I'm looking at the top 18. Gareth actually got himself up a couple of extra places, and there's a big battle going on here between Austin Grave and Mark Van Moken, and ahead of them is Danny Mulder. So Danny Mulder is currently leading the way on the reverse grid position, but one of these drivers might fancy his chances of getting ahead. Bostock looks as though he's just dropped off the back of Jan a little bit, so maybe that position is all said and done. Are we going to see the white flag? No, so we will have 2 more laps of racing here before we get underway for the finale. And at the moment, as we said, it is Danny Mudler who is in prime position to take the reverse grid pole position. That's the car ahead, just leaving the picture now. James hadn't actually dropped off the back of Jan. He's actually still with him, and really filling his mirrors at the moment is that Camé GP2 car, busting out the old livery with some enhancements, some new sponsors, but I think that was the livery that these guys drove in Season 3 of ESR, which feels like a long time ago. That's a wobble. That's surely going to allow James to go through, and I think it is now the white flag. And that's going to be Mr. Bostock up the inside into turn 1. Gets himself up into P4 in class, P5 on the road. I'm sure James will be very satisfied with that if he can hang on. It's not over yet. Still got to deal with a handful of corners. Another 8 corners to go for these 2 Porsche drivers before we conclude. And we can catch up with them in a moment. Here's the rest of the 2 Fords, the 2 skyscrapers coming around the first corner. And now down the bank through the S's and through the curves. And who's going to come out on top between Alex Comrats and James Howard? Now James won't want to do too much here because he's out of class. He's currently in a podium position in the Evo class, well within the reverse grid order. So he definitely doesn't want to give it too many beans, just in case. Here it is then though, the man of the session so far. He started in P2 behind his teammate Robin Aston, who had an incident to deal with, as we saw earlier, who effectively handed the lead over to his teammate, who rounds the final corner, and John Ludbrook crosses the line first. and he will take maximum points in the opening round here of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Season 7 Split B Championship. What a mouthful, but it does sound good to say. He comes across the line ahead of Robin Noel Brown and Liam Fraser, who had a great battle up there for the podium. Congratulations to all of them. And this man, Edward Adcock for Vortex Sim Sports, leads the way in the Evo class ahead of Jan Nagy, who crosses the line. The Swedish driver on his debut race here in Evolution Sim Racing gets himself on the podium and will start inside the reverse grid order. And here's James Howarth for DXT Luna, driving that Ford, the absolute legs off it, and he's done the job that he needed to do. He, I'm sure, will be thoroughly satisfied with that. Oh, and that's an incident, that's a live incident. Let's see what happened here, because that, I don't think... Have they crossed the line? Is that at turn 1? No, it's not. Let's ride on board and see what happens here. This is live racing before they reach the checkered flag. Oh, and it's a last gasp effort for Danny, and then he's stopped, and then he's received a shunt. Yeah, and then he's just driven off the track, and with the damage, he's lost the car and put it in the wall, and we can ride on from this perspective. We can see that cluster of cars ahead. Again, I'm not sure why drivers stop on the track. Like, okay, I know you're trying to be sporting and letting the car go, but that's not what you want to see. You get it stuck in neutral, and he's cost a few drivers a few positions there. So as the drivers get ahead with their warm-up, we can run through the finishing order here for first, the Premier class. So John Ludbrook, he takes the top step of the podium, led the majority of the race for Camé GP2 Porsche, ahead of Robin Noel Brown, the 121 machine for Suma GP2 Porsche. Moonshiners Racing Club on their debut get themselves on the podium with Liam Fraser, ahead of James Bostock, who in the end got past Jan Ostberg, who finished in P4 and P5 respectively. James Robinson finished in P6 ahead of Matthias Eggert, ahead of Dean Shisby in P8, and Alex Komratz was Klaas Janssen, the top 10. Ryan Blackie and Scott Kostrick, the top 12, ahead of Danny Mudler and Mark Van Mulken, with Robin Gregg, the top 15, also for Moonshiners Racing Club. Henry Coulin in P16 ahead of Hussein Sarakin Tesla, who started so positively after qualifying but made a mistake on turn 3 or 4, cost him the run up the hill, and then since then it was an uphill battle for him. Pete Pieva and Clyde Veyer ahead of Bruno Silva, Austin Grave and Anthony Flamel. And is there going to be another layer to this? Yes, there is. Jorma van Dier in P23 with Evan Main ahead of Robin Aston and Baz Meacham, who were unable to finish. Evan will score points, however Robin and Baz will not. And now for the Evo class, a much smaller class which we can dig our teeth into. Edward Adcock leads the way at the front. He did it all the way through, finished very high up in the end, ahead of Jan Nagy for Sheep Valley Racing and James Howarth for DXT Luna, rounding off the Evo class podium. Sander Tabbers ahead of Gareth Newton in P5. We saw that stricken car without a front end for the majority of that race, so a good result in the end for Gareth, who I think got himself up into the top 18 by a few positions in the end. Robert Savage and Bert Tenkat in P7 ahead of Ryan Abbots, Dominic Backhouse and Andy Chell in P10. Carl Whitehouse, Louis Plath, Nicky Mehring, Andrea Muntein and Danny Weir, the top 15 ahead of James Pallett, who will be the last of the finishers, with Stuart Lindsay finishing 21 laps down. Danny and James will score points. So, no drivers choosing to take some warm-up laps at the moment, I believe. So we'll have a look at them in the pit lane at the moment. can try and fix the correction in the comments on the team name, but I'm going to have to know who you are and who your team is, mate, because a username without any information doesn't help. Louis Plath is out on the track, so we've got a nice car to look at, and this is the livery that we picked up on earlier, the lovely cyan chrome, making his way around the circuit. He's going to get probably enough time to get into the final sector, but it won't be enough to complete a lap time, but it's good to get a feel for the cars. Back on the heavy fuel load, back on fresh tyres, will obviously feel very different to how they feel at the end of the race. So there we go then, the warm-up is concluded, and Louis pulls off to the side of the road. Soon be able to run through the grid ahead of the reverse 18 feature race. Let's take a look then. So, Danny Mulder does lead the way, the 155 Dutchman, the late entry in the Veraco esports team. White leads ahead of Scott Kostrick for Suma GP2 Porsche. Gareth Newton will lead the way for the Evo class ahead of Ryan Blackie to round off the front two rows of the grid. Sander Tabbers and Klaas Janssen the top six ahead of James Howarth and Alex Koenrats on row 4, with Dean Schuspy and Jan Nagy the top 10. Matthias Eggert and James Robinson on row 6 of the grid ahead of Jan Ostberg and James Bostock, who we saw putting up a great battle toward the end. The man to watch then, Edward Adcock. He'll fancy his chances to move up the grid as we get towards some of the class leaders, the pace leaders should we say, the likes of Adcock, Fraser, Noel Brown and Ludbrook. Keep our eyes on them in the early stages of this race. That will be on the front 9 row of the grid. Then we have Mark Van Moken and Robin Gregg rounding off the top 20 as we cycle through to Henry Coulin and Robert Savage ahead of Burton Kat and Hussein Saraka Desla on row 12. Pete Paiva and Clyde Veyer ahead of Ryan Abbott and Dominic Backhouse, with Bruno Silva and Austin Grave the top 30. Anthony Flamel and Andy Chell ahead of Carl Whitehouse and Louis Plath the top 34, with Nicky Mehring and Andrea Muntin the top 36. Jelmer van der Meer, I believe that is, Danny Weir, Evan Main and James Pallett down there in P40, with Robin Aston, Baz McCheam and Stuart Lindsay, the South African, in P43. So then we will soon be underway as the checkered flag drops for the final time, and it's over to Danny Mulder to get us underway, and he does so with aplomb. He's already leading the way clear ahead of the cars in front. Let's see if everybody can make it through turn 1 this time, which they all seem to do. Last time the problems, however, start to occur when you reach the twisty section down the hill where the leaders now head through. Let's see, we got as many of them in frame as we can. Danny leading Gareth, leading Scott ahead of Ryan, and Sander the top 5, and Sander is the man in the McLaren there who we ride on with at the moment. It looks like everyone's getting through more or less cleanly. Not too much to report on the timing sheet, so a very clean start in the feature race, which is exactly what you like to see. Already got someone going around the outside here. The pace there of the Acura of Dean Sheesby might fancy his chances, but wants to be careful. Going into the chicane, is he going to send it on the McLaren? I think he is alongside. Yes, he is. Rumersland left. Both got them slowed down nicely. However, that might allow the Ford to get a little bit of a run here. This is James Howarth, who's currently in P3. Someone's off the road in the back. That's Mark Van Mulken, who's been sent round. He is going to have to wait for the whole field to come round. And there's been another incident there at the hairpin. Who's that off? It's a rejoining. Oh, was that a rejoin? I was looking at the timing sheet, so I missed the rejoin. We'll catch up with all the action in a moment. At the moment, though, here's John Ludbrook, the leader from the opening round. He's already up 5 places off the start, so it's been a great race for him so far. Danny Mulder still leads ahead of Gareth Newton. Here they are, Scott Kostrick, very close in behind his Suma GP2 teammate. We got Ryan Blackie for company in that multicoloured Porsche, who nearly went around the outside there as he went through the braking zone. 3 Porsches very close to one another toward the front of the grid. But at the moment it's Danny who's getting himself away nicely. 1.6 seconds the difference. And Gareth Newton's, he's had an issue. And he's got to rejoin very, very carefully, which he does. No incidents there. And the car on the inside makes that move stick. And he joins a fellow Suma GP2 car. Leaves one, joins another. This time it's his direct teammate of Hussein Sarek and Desler, the 2 Acura cars, with Henry Coulin and the McLaren for company in behind. So let's go back then and see what happened with Klaas Janssen a little bit earlier on. This is the issue that we saw in toward the hairpin. Slow Ford, I think that's a slow Howarth, and then it just all concertinas up from that point on. Let's see what happens from this point of view. There's a slight check-up, a slight concertina there, not ready for him. Spun round, contact into one, into the next. Less than ideal, but that is usually what happens. And then I don't think the rejoin was ideal. Let's see if it was the rejoin or if it was another piece of contact that we missed. Oh, rear bumper's gone. Still getting driven round. Some drivers very, very throttle happy. Yeah, rejoining the circuit sideways. That's going to go to the stewards, I'm sure. And that is Janssen continuing on his way. Here's Danny Weir, though, in that lovely livery that we noticed earlier. The car's livery, number 55. And I want to do my best to show off this livery as much as I can. Scott Kostrick, I think, is side by side. Yes, he is. He's taking the lead up the inside of the chicane. Scott Kostrick leads the feature race here at the front in the Premier class for the Suma GP2 Porsche team. Danny's not going to go down without a fight, though. He's going to be putting him under all sorts of pressure. He might even get a switchback here, a run toward the final corner. Such a tricky braking zone that they're about to come up to now through turn 12 at Goddard's. And is he going to get the switchback? Well, Scott rightly parked on the apex there. Didn't give him any room to switch back, which is all fair and square. And a flash of the headlights for Ryan Blackie and John Ludbrook. He's had an incident again. It's John Ludbrook, James Robinson coming together. James has been in the wars since the start of this race. Let's see what happened between those two guys here. This is James, who got a good run. Is he going to launch one up the inside, perhaps? Let's see. Oh, no, look at that. Those two come together. John turns in. And the car on the inside hasn't begun to turn in yet. Let's see from this perspective. John looks to go. It's a tricky one, that. Very, very tricky. Reminder, sorry about that, mate. I would have noticed that eventually. Wow, as if I went nearly 6 minutes there without the timing tower. My mistake. Here we are though. So we have the lead at the moment of Scott Kostrick, who's, look at that, the gap that he's brought up already ahead of Shisby, Mulder and Comrat, who are battling in behind. Scott's just got to do what he does to keep it clean. We said it actually during the first race. Scott's one of those drivers who's always been here. He knows the league very well, he knows most of the drivers very well, and he knows that Porsche very well. And now that we've split the grid, he would definitely be someone that I would have up there as being able to battle it out for some class wins. Maybe not in the first race, but if he can do what he's done here in these reverse features, then we can definitely go and see him winning a few rounds this season, I'm sure. See the Mercedes of Liam Fraser, who we saw a little bit action-packed earlier with Mr. Bostock. Getting it slowed down nicely, filling the mirrors of Sander Tabbers, who's out of his class. Currently, let's take a look at them in order then, so we can see James Howarth currently in P1 in class, P3 overall on the podium for the entire field. Let's see how he handles that. See if he can stay ahead. And then we've got Sander Tabbers, the McLaren ahead, who's currently P2 in the Evo class. So those top 3 or 4 drivers doing very well in our second division. And I spoke a little bit too soon, because here is one of them who's around and off the circuit. That's Jan Nagy, the Swedish driver. He's going to have to rejoin in the right window, which is exactly what he does. Always good to see. And we join back with Mr. Sander under all sorts of pressure here from this, probably the slightly faster Liam Fraser in that Mercedes, looking very good. The MRC machine putting him under all sorts of pressure, and even the 2 cars ahead, which is Alex Comrat and Danny Mulder, battling for a place on the Premier Class podium. These guys not going to let it go. 10 minutes gone already here. Well, only 8 minutes gone actually. Still 22 to go. Oh, and the defence there by the McLaren forces Klaas Janssen around the outside. He's had to bail out. I mean, I respect that a lot actually, because a lot of people would just drive into the back of the car ahead. But instead, Klaas does the right thing and gets himself off the circuit. I'd love to watch that back, but I don't think I have that in my timing sheet. But that was an unfortunate piece there. He did get squeezed all the way over to the inside line by the McLaren ahead, switched back over to the normal racing line, and then before he knew it, he was ever so slightly late on the brakes, but did the right thing to bail out off the circuit to avoid any contact. And who's that ahead? That was always going to happen. What was that? Bruno Silva. Was it a mistake? Or did they both just come together and that's another... Oh, God. Who's that off? That's Jan again off the circuit. Austin is missing his front wing. We've got so much happening here, but it's difficult to even keep track. Who was involved there? It was Bruno Silva, I think, wasn't it? Let's see if it's this one. This is a total gamble. Oh, it's well ahead. Well ahead of this one. Wow. A lot happened in that incident. Here it is, I think. Yes, this is the one. So, they exit the final corner. Very tight, very slow. Oh, and someone's trying to go into the pit lane and then... Oh, that's so unfortunate. That is so unfortunate by Bruno. That's where the radio would be important. But obviously, I must say... I don't think you can just, like, force your way into the pit lane, you know? I mean, fair enough, the guy needed to go in. But if you can't go in, because there's a car on the inside, you can't just stop. And that's exactly what the driver did. And as a result, he's cost 2 or 3 drivers there. some points in the feature race. Who's that off the track there? I was looking at the timing sheet again. What's that look like? Was it Evan? No, it wasn't Evan. Was it Andy? No, it wasn't Andy. Someone went off the circuit alongside Sarika Desler there, who's also had an incident earlier on. Look at that debris being kicked up. All the gravel that's being thrown across the circuit, causing all these cars to smoke. Looks very good, to be honest. Bostock around the outside at the chicane, just about keeps it on the track. Klaus Janssen has to be careful. He's under pressure already from Evan, who's probably going to get the move done here in the BMW. He's looking to go around up the inside, and he's got another BMW now thinking about a move. Evan does get that done, and now he can set his sights after Mr. Bostock ahead, currently in P12 in the Premier class. That's a little bit wide by James, but Evan impartial to it. He keeps it going, gets it slowed down nicely. This battle will continue, I'm sure, for some time yet. And Bruno Silva just got himself past Austin there as he exits the final corner, and Bruno will fancy his chances to get straight on the back of Henry Coulin. Oh, maybe not that quickly. Very late on the brakes, had to back out of it. He was nearly inside the back of him, never mind on the back of him, but he manages to get it slowed down just in time there. So the drivers toward the front of the grid. Danny Weir, oh, he's round and he is out. Well, not out, but he's round and down. That's a big shame for Danny. Let's see what went wrong through the S section. Oh, the Ford comes over. Yeah. I'm not sure if the car really got... Was he alongside, I think, as they went through the S's? He wants to get the run. And the Ferrari on the inside, and then Danny comes across. Yeah, he's there. He's always there, and that poor looking livery slap bang into the barrier. So we're just about to cross over into half race distance. That's another McLaren who's entered the pit, and I think that's James Pallett who goes in. His race might be over already. Here's James Howarth leading the way ahead of Sander in the Evo class. A great result for James if he can get a podium and a first place finish to start off his championship season for the DXT Luna team, bringing home some pretty strong points as it stands in P4 overall, so right toward the front of the field. That's Liam Fraser, the car ahead, who was battling toward the front of the class last race, still finds himself on the podium. Scott doing very well, 1.5 seconds clear of Dean Sheesby, who's 3 seconds clear of Liam Fraser. So the gaps toward the front of the field quite stark at the moment, but not these two going side by side. I think this is into the chicane, and who's that? Is that Bruno again? Yeah, Bruno's been all over the place this race. Looked a little bit wobbly as he got offset under braking into the hairpin there through Melbourne, but manages to keep it steady. And now looking around the outside is Henry Coulin here. The Ferrari will be under pressure from... Sorry, the McLaren will be under pressure from the Ferrari in behind. Heavy on the brakes, just about gets it slowed down. He's low. I could have got the throttle down a little bit sooner there. I thought he was going to get the run down the hill, but no, that might allow this man, Austin Grave, the A6 Sim Sports driver, to get the run. He also just comes off the throttle a little bit sooner Grass being kicked up, but look at that's a hell of a run. Yellow flag, someone's off. Who's that? That's Andy, I think. Andy is round. He's off on the side of the circuit, but he gets himself back going. He's dropped down a few places. Now finds himself in P7 in class. That's Andrea Muntin, I think, ahead of him, and he runs off the circuit once again here. Drama up and down the grid. What's going on as we enter the half race distance now? Another overtake. There's so much to keep up with here. That's Evan Main up the inside of Pete Pieva. That's for P10 in the Premier Division. Obviously, there's some considerations to be made for some of the new guys. I'm not sure how many of them are familiar with league racing in general, or even our setup and stuff, you know. And I think you find that the more and more these guys will drive with each other, they'll begin to know about each other's strengths, each other's weaknesses, when to back out, when to go in. And so I'm sure we'll start seeing some improvements, because we do have a hell of a lot of new names on the grid this season. I'd say probably half the grid. In fact, yeah, it will be half the grid, right? Because we've got 120 seats and we only had 60 last year. So even if every single driver signed up once again, which they haven't, that means over 50% of our two split grids will be new faces to the way that we do things. So it will take a little while for these guys to get up to speed, to understand the way that the league functions. But for the old guard, one of these, Gareth Newton, for example, who's been involved in many, many races with ESR, he knows what's going on, and he's chosen to change it up here, driving the Acura for the first time. Let's see what's happened to Henry Cool, and then this is coming out of... Is it the final hairpin? Yes, it is. In toward the final corner. He's got a stricken Ferrari on his outside, and I think he misses the apex there, does Henry. Let's watch that from his onboard. I think the car on the outside can be forgiven for that one, because he would expect the car on the inside to hit the apex, which he just doesn't. Understeers ever so slightly. Some unfortunate contact, and then sadly, there's been another incident for Danny Weir. I'm sure this is probably just from the damage. Yes, it is. Rejoins the circuit with that damage in behind and thinks, nope, I cannot keep going with this, and that is his night over. Now Bostock looking around the outside of Evan, who just came to cover off the inside line. Just over 10 minutes to go before we conclude for the first set of sessions tonight. I appreciate everybody who got themselves into the broadcast. I think we actually set a new record for my personal broadcasting. I think we had over 40 people in here at once, which is very, very good. Usually it's between 20 and 30, so effectively doubled the amount at some point tonight, which I'm appreciative of. And that's Mr. Bostock there, looking to go around the outside of the Ferrari. Couldn't quite get it done though. He has to stay put for the time being. Let's ride on board some more with the Porsche. Listen to that sweet, sweet turbo engine as he churns up through the gears now, down into the S's. Turn 9, turn 10, gets it down, holds it in third gear on the power nice and early. I hope that wasn't a slowdown. It doesn't look like it is, because... Oh, yes it was. A small slowdown, a fractional error of taking too much on that left tyre of the exit curb can cost you so much time. It looked like, you know, if you was even a couple of centimetres further to the left, you would have got a lovely run on Clyde ahead, but it didn't go his way that time. Now he's had to drop down, finds himself in first gear, coming around the final corner, foot to the floor, crosses the line, and he'll now set away on what is lap 14 of this feature race. So plenty of laps that these drivers have had to do, dealing with fuel, dealing with tyres. And the tyres, I'm sure, will start to be probably not feel the best, I think it's safe to say, at this point in the race. Let's ride on once again then with some of the leaders. James Howarth still 4 seconds clear of anybody, and the man that he's 4 seconds clear of also happens to be his interclass rival. There he is, entering the frame. Now it's Sander. There's James making his way through, and here's Sander following him through. And then the next cluster of cars will follow after that. Scott Kostrick doing everything that he needs to do. Dean, let's ride on from Dean's perspective. He can just about see Scott ahead. That distant blob in the distance. Scott is actually about to start passing some blue flags. Let's hope they don't slow him down too much. Remember, we don't do it in the same way that some Formula Racing does it. If you're under blue flags, you're under no obligation to just get out of the way. You can drive the normal racing line at your pace, but what you can't do is defend the position. If the driver behind makes his way through, you have to let him by. And so Scott will know that. As I said earlier, that's where some of these things come in about the experienced drivers versus those that are new to the way that we do things. Not necessarily new to racing or sim racing in general, just more so unfamiliar with the way that we do things. Might not realise that. But Scott can make a move. They have to let him through, just in case that becomes a little bit of a complex topic later on. We've seen it happen before. Let's hope we don't see it tonight. This battle, though, with the pace of Ludbrook, Edward will want to be careful here. He's currently on the podium. Oh, bloody hell. Who was that? Who was that? Going to there. Was that Robin Mulbrown? Yes, it was. I don't even think his brake worked there. He just went flying through the chicane. Can we see that one, maybe? Let's try. Is it this one? Oh. There we go. Heading out the final corner. Oh. Yeah, let's watch that from his perspective there, because that was slightly questionable. Maybe. Let's see. Moves to the inside. Oh, and then moves over. And yeah, I mean, aggressive, probably legal, but pretty aggressive to move over so late just before the braking zone. You're asking to be rear-ended there. And again, a very good job by Robin to avoid Danny there in the end. Pressure here by John Ludbrook on Danny. Let's see if he defends in a similar way, or is he going to pick his line earlier this time. 5 minutes to go, and all the leaders seem pretty clear of one another. Is Ludbrook going to go for it here? He backs out. Danny is aware of that. Lets it run. And John will look to go again, but he's got Edward all over the back of him as well. Again, Edward doesn't want to do too much. And then he goes and makes some contact, and I think that's more contact in behind, possibly. Really, he might be wise to just let these guys through. He's got a nice 8-second cushion in behind him before the next car. And so it might be wise just to hang on to that podium rather than risking any more contact, especially while these guys are going tooth and nail for a P4 finish in the Premier class. This is the battle that we might want to keep our eyes on. It's Dean Sheesby chasing down Liam Fraser. This is the battle for P2 in the Premier class. Very, very close here. I think we're going to see a pretty frantic finish as these two battle for the big points in the league. Remember, P1 will take home all 50 points and P2 will be 45, P3 40. So 5 points on offer between these two guys at the moment. And with the Premier class being such a big class, we'll actually see some guys not scoring any points at all. I don't think it's too common that we have guys finishing the race outside the top 20 and therefore scoring no points. But we'll have definitely seen that in the previous round earlier in the evening. 1 point for P20, 11 points for P13, 21 points for P9. And as I said, 40, 45 and 50 respectively for the 3 places left on the podium. Two and a half minutes to go. This is where it matters. The car will be feeling light, but the tyres won't be where they were earlier. It's a bit of a conflict. These guys have got to master the machinery and keep it in a straight line. There's been an issue for Ryan Abbott, so let's quickly jump to that before we get away. The Mustang comes across, bit of damage on all of these cars, sends it up the inside, really late on the brakes, doesn't get it slowed down at all, and he is off the circuit. The last few battles on track here between these guys battling for 7 points in the Premier class. It's Hjalmar van der Meer, Austin Grafe and Ryan Blackie. And who's that? That's Austin with that damaged Ferrari up front. That'll be costing him through the high downforce section. It won't be doing him any benefits in the straight line either. The Porsche here of Ryan might consider a little move. One of them looking around the outside but can't get it stuck. A little bit of a wobble on the exit for the Ferrari. So Scott will cut the beam for one final time as he sets away on his final lap, making his way through the final couple of braking zones. And then he'll have what is a little bit of a victory lap. Can't be too easy though, because you've got Liam and Dean very close in behind one another. I'm looking at this thinking, did those guys swap positions? Or were they in that position when we caught them earlier? I don't recall. I think it was Liam ahead of Dean. So those guys have held what we have, a blue flag getting out the way nicely for Scott as he crosses the line on what will be the final lap of this race. First sector done. Just going to keep it tidy now, Scott. Can see nobody in his mirrors. Well, he can now. He couldn't for a moment. Liam will be hoping for a mistake. This is probably the only place that he's going to make one. If he does, gets it slowed down nicely, keeps it in third, avoids the slowdown crucially. Doesn't need to do too much, and it looks as though it's going to be everything that Scott needs to do. Getting closer and closer. Look at this, actually, the top three separated by what will only be a second and a half as they come to cross the line. But as he rounds the final corner, he's got to get on the stoppers one last time. The Scotsman, Scott Kostrick, the 101 machine, will take maximum points in the feature race and leads the field over the line to win the feature race. And did Liam and Dean swap positions on the line? So Dean Sheesby takes P2 ahead of Liam Fraser. And then this man in the tank, in the skyscraper, the American muscle, does what he needs to do. That's a podium in the opening round and a P1 finish for Mr. James Howarth. Good result and a good haul of points for him. I'm sure he'll be very satisfied with that. P2 goes to Sander Tabbers for another strong result. And then Edward Adcock in P3. He won in the opening round in the Evo class. So reverse points for him and James. So they'll probably go into the second round tied at the front of their championships. Final drivers making their way around the final corner now. But I did want to see here when they made that pass. Here it is. Dean making that pass on Liam. Was it a mistake or did he have a slowdown to serve? He just comes off the power, lets him by just before the line. And Dean very satisfied with that one little wobble of the wheel. Be interested to see what happened there. Liam, I'm not sure if that's a flash in celebration or a flash in frustration. It'll be interesting if either of those guys join us in the interview booth to try and explain what exactly happened there. So then that is us all wrapped up and ready to go. And we can now run through the finishing order of the feature results. First with the Premier class. So Scott Kostrick for Suma GP2 Porsche wins ahead of Dean Sheesby and Liam Fraser, who swap positions there on the final corner, rounding off the Premier Division podium. Ahead of Robin Noel Brown and James Robinson in P4 and P5, with John Ludbrook and Evan Main in P7, who looks to have got ahead of Mr. Bostock toward the end of the race. He finished in P8. Danny Mulder, who started on pole position, ended up the race in P9 ahead of Clyde Vella in P10. Pete Paeva in P11 ahead of Klaas Janssen, the top 12. Mark van Mulken ahead of Bruno Silva and Jalmar van der Meer, with Austin Grave, Ryan Blackie and Anthony Flamel in P18, ahead of Alex Comrats, Henry Coulin and Robin Gregg, who all finished on the lead lap, ahead of Jan Osberg, who finished ahead of Hussein Saraka Desla, the last of the finishers. However, Henry Coulin, the last of the point scorers there, in P20. So Greg, Osberg and Saraka Desla won't score any points, even though they finished the race. Matthias Egert, Robin Aston and Baz Meacham once again were unable to finish. Robin and Baz not taking part. And now in the Evo class, James Howarth, a night to remember and a great opening to the season for him and the DXT Luna team. He wins ahead of Sander Tabbers in P2, the Dutchman for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. Edward Adcock, he will join James Howarth at the front of the championship. He rounds off the podium in P3. Ryan Abbots and Gareth Newton, the top 5, ahead of Andrew Chell and Andrea Muntin in P7. Dominic Backhouse and Carl Whitehouse in P8 and 9, ahead of Louis Plath in P10. Burton Kate ahead of Robert Savage and Jan Nagy, with Nicky Mehring and Danny Weir the top 15. However, it looks as though Danny, James and Stewart will again not finish, and I would guess that Nicky may score points, although I'm not too sure. I think he will. He's 22. No, he might not actually. No, he will. He will. So, that is the standings concluded. We have a few guys waiting in the interview booth, and I have to do my best to pick out the drivers who belong to me, and not to bring in anybody who doesn't belong to us. Okay then, so first of all, we are going to bring in Mr. James Howarth, who, as we said earlier, will likely lead the way in some regard toward the top of the EVO Championship. So James, good evening. Are you with us, mate?
I am indeed, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing very good, mate, and I'm sure you're doing better than I. That's a great result for you. A great start in the opening race, P3, ahead of your first race victory. How does that feel to start the season very strong?
Well, to be fair, I felt confident in it. I've got to say the battle tank is really doing me some favours at the minute. So, congrats on, who was it in the first race? Was it?
It was Edward ahead of Sander, I think.
Yeah, congrats on them too. They had blistering pace on the first race, and I thought they were going to catch me up on the second race, but I think I just held my own and they got stuck in traffic, which gave me a little bit of breathing space.
Yeah, did you ever have a worry that some of the faster guys might come through? It seemed as though you had quite a good start off the launch, and then you finished in P4 by the end of the round, so you did well to not get swallowed up by any of the Premier drivers. Just kind of kept it clean, brought it home, and yeah, got yourself that race win.
Yeah, I let Liam by because obviously he's not in my class, so I just thought instead of holding him up, I have to clean air because I knew I was faster than Sander. But yeah, just let him by and just plodded along.
Very good, mate. And tell me, how does the Ford feel, especially on a track like this, that first section, you know, lugging left to right? Is it a car that you're happy with, especially in the open setups? And I don't recall what you drove last year in GT3, but how familiar are you with this absolute skyscraper that I was calling it? You refer to it as a tank, I was referring to it as the skyscraper.
Yeah, well, I drove the M4 last season and I just didn't get on with it. And this battle tank of mine, I'm full of confidence with the right setup. And funnily enough, I used Brand's hatch setup for this race.
Interesting. Well, I can see the characteristics that it shares, actually, so that does make a lot of sense. Well, good stuff, mate. And was that what you expected tonight? Had you put in the pace? Did you have an idea that you might have been there or thereabouts, or has this come as a bit of a surprise?
A bit of both, really. I knew some drivers in the Evo were pretty fast, and I'm not exactly the quickest in GT3, but it's like everyone says, put the practice in and it'll pay off.
You're absolutely right, and you've been there and you've done it, and now you've got to try and do it again. This time next week we'll be at Zolder for the second round. Is that a circuit that you're familiar with? Were you there for GT4 at the end of last season?
I was around Zolder, yes, and it's not a particularly track that I'm liking at the minute, but I'm sure we're enough practice over the Christmas week and following week after that when we get into race 2, I'll be pretty confident.
Very good, mate, very good. Well, as always, you've had the support of Laura in the chat, but is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before I let you go?
Obviously Laura, the DXT lot, for obviously pushing us and having the old banter.
Very good. Good stuff, mate. Well, congratulations once again, and yeah, fingers crossed that the run of form continues. Maybe you can go all the way with the likes of Ed and Sanders as the season goes on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the battles ahead.
Good stuff, mate. Enjoy your evening.
You too. Take care.
All right, good to speak with Mr. Howarth there. Done a great job to stay toward the front of the field. And of course, he'll want to continue that vein of form as things go on. Next then, let's bring in Mr. Ludbrook, who I don't think I've spoken to in these interview panels before. So, John, how are you, mate? Are you with us?
I'm here.
Good stuff, mate. Well, I've just got you on the timing sheet there, so we're good to go. And tell me, first of all, talking to that first race, and particularly when you came out of qualifying, knowing that you had, you had at least one or two teammates right with you, right? So obviously it didn't go well for Robin. Yeah, it didn't go well for Robin at the start, but then you held your own all the way to the checkered flag. So how did that feel?
That felt great, mate. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know how that was going to end, to be fair. I'm so hot right now. But we did some good practice with the GP2 team, so we had a good private session yesterday, which obviously paid off. I think we were top 3 or 4 on grid, so no, really happy with that.
Yeah, good. And talk me through the race too. Obviously, still good points, nothing like the first race, but you had, the Premier class has got a lot of new names, a lot of competition, and I would obviously back the likes of yourself and even Scott. I was making the comment that you guys toward the front, some of the few that have been with us for a long time, and so you kind of, you get the idea about who the drivers are, the way that things go, and I think that could play some sort of advantage to you guys as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think so. The drivers that we've seen before for the past seasons, we know how they race. It's always interesting coming up to someone you've never raced with before. There was a good section of time where I was behind Danny Mulder and his very wide McLaren, which is very tough to get past. We had to come in together a couple of times. Not sure who's at fault. I think I had the inside of the track, but who knows? He may put a ticket in, he may not. But yeah, just the whole driving with new drivers can be difficult, but seems to have paid off tonight and had a bit of a tough race 2, but turned out all right.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky track to get a handle of, and you've obviously chosen to stick with the Porsche. Was that quite an easy decision? Was there another car that you maybe had in mind, or was it always the idea to stick ahead with the Porsche?
I did buy the NSX. I did a few laps in it. I was only about half a second off, but with a bit of practice, I probably could have got there. But I thought, no, I've spent the time in the Porsche. Stick with it.
Yeah, stick with what you know.
Maybe do a few officials in the NSX and see if I can improve it on there. But for the league, I'll stick with the Porsche. Yeah,
well, I think I would say the same. If you're potentially going to be within a chance at a title, you want to have a machine under that you're used to. And I think that's what you've got, and it's obviously a very dominant car, lots of choice, lots of people like to use it, and we've seen that time and time again over the last few seasons. So, yeah, Donington, a very different track. How do you feel about Zolder next week?
Can't stand it, but...
Good.
Who knows? With the drivers that we got around us, Clyde was extremely quick last week, not so much this week. So I'm sure he'll probably be up there at Zolder. Last season I didn't do too great at Zolder, so let's see.
Well, good stuff, mate, and obviously congratulations, a good haul of points for you. And before I let you go, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just the whole of the GP2 team. What a fantastic performance for all of them, really. Scott with a win as well, which is great. James missed the start of race 2 and pulled it back for an 8th, I believe, which was fantastic. So yeah, just the whole GP team and you for the broadcast.
I appreciate that, mate. Yeah, and I missed that from James actually, so that is a notable comeback, as you say. So thoroughly deserved, and yeah, good haul for the team. So congratulations to you all, and good luck next week when we meet again at Zolder.
Brilliant.
All right, cheers, John. Enjoy your evening.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, good to speak to some new people, and obviously John's been with us for some time, but I've never been able to speak with him again. Next up, we're going to bring in yet another new face to the grid. That's going to be Mr. Dean Sheesby. And Dean, are you with us, mate?
Hi, Joe.
Hello, mate. Good to speak to you. And, welcome, should I say. Welcome to the booth. Welcome to ESR. And tell me, just talk me through your debut. How do you feel? How did it go?
Yeah, great to be racing with you boys. I really enjoyed it. Race 1 was going pretty decent, and unfortunately, I don't know if you caught it on stream or not, but a little coming together at T1 with Hussein, which absolutely gutted me. He kind of caught me out with his braking point. He kind of braked about 5-6 meters earlier than I was expecting him to. So I had to dive it up the inside, and yeah, the rest was history. We spun, and I stopped to let him back on, and yeah, kind of got in on that incident. And then race 2, got a good start off that. Gained a couple of places. Couldn't catch P1. Cannot remember his name. I do apologise. Who was it who won?
Scott Kostrick.
Scott, that was it. Yeah, the gap was literally just staying the same. I'd gained a couple of attempts in one section, and then he's gained it back. And then I had my teammate Liam literally behind me, catching me up. And then when Liam did actually catch me up, he seemed to get a bit stale behind. And we kind of did the Red Bull move of, I'll let you go, see if you can have a go at it. If you can, all good. If not, we'll swap places back. So Liam had a go of it. We got very close towards the end. But yeah, wasn't to be. So we kindly swapped back, and he didn't do a Verstappen on me, which was nice.
We were tracking that actually, and that makes total sense. It had gone over my head that you were teammates. So then when you swap positions at the end, I wondered what that was about, but that does make total sense. So I kind of missed the handing over of the position earlier in the race, but then at the end I was like, hold on a minute, these guys have swapped places. So I went back and had a look, but yeah, we were definitely eyes on with you guys as you were slowly trying to catch up with Scott, but in the end wasn't to be. But still, very, very strong result, and especially a good result for the team. Yeah,
definitely. Liam had a great first race and got good points there, and both of us in the second race, so yeah, great for the team. And congratulations to Scott as well. I say, great driving by him.
Yeah, and you guys, obviously, actually more so Liam being in the Mercedes, I think the only Mercedes on track tonight, and obviously maybe 5 or 6 of you guys in the Acura. So how was that, and was that an easy decision to make when the car was released last week, or have you maybe tossed and turned between driving a couple of the cars?
Well, to be honest, I was going to drive the Lambo, all set to drive the Lambo, and I've always liked Hondas, and it was just literally, I'm going to go for it. It was nothing to do with it being a meta car or anything like that. I don't know if it is, to be honest. Don't really pay much attention on that. And I did the livery and everything else before I'd even test drove the car. My teammates were laughing and were going and say, it's going to be a bag of crap. I was like, well, if it is, it is. But no, to be honest, nice car. Don't know which was better, the Lambo or the NSX, but yeah, didn't do too bad tonight on it.
Yeah, very good, mate, very good. Well, good to speak to you. Thanks for joining us. And I always give the guys a chance to give a shout out to anybody if you would like to do that before we go.
Just cheers to everybody who's organising the races and that. Seems to be a really good setup so far. So yeah, looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, very good stuff, mate. Good stuff. Always welcome back to have a chat. So fingers crossed for some more positive results before the end of the year. Yeah, good to speak to you, mate. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate. All right, then. And finally, we will bring in the teammate of Mr. Shispi, which is Mr. Liam Fraser. Liam, good evening, mate. How's it going?
Good evening.
Well, that was a very entertaining final, mate, and I've just spoken to Dean. I was saying I didn't know what happened at the end when he gave him the place, but he explained the situation, and that cleared it up for me. So, talk to me through. We got a lot of you in the first race when you were chasing down position toward the end, and it looks as though you've had 2 very strong results there. Is that as expected, or maybe a little bit more than what you expected so soon into the championship?
It was probably a little bit more, to be honest. We was hoping for top 10, so that's where I was aiming. Top 3. I had the pace towards the end of the first race there. The podium makes its lap time in a very different way, so I was catching on the brakes, but losing out the corners. It gave me a glimmer of hope, so managed to keep the concentration up in race 1, but I was lacking in race 2 for concentration.
Yeah, it can be long, especially this track, with the grass everywhere. Easy to make a mistake. You got to stay fully focused all the way around the lap. And I was saying, you're the only Mercedes, the only Mercedes that was on the circuit tonight. Obviously, there's about 15 or so drivers who weren't with us in this split. But yeah, that'll be interesting if you turn out to be the only Mercedes driver. Is it a car that you're familiar with, or have you decided to give it a try for this championship season?
It's just something that during the downtime I liked. It's the only one apart from the Ferrari I own, so it's got to be that.
Very good, mate. Very good. That makes total sense. And this circuit, one that you're familiar with, one that you enjoy. Obviously, you've got good points, so I'd imagine you've got some pace around here, but a lot of guys sometimes say, oh, I'm not too familiar with the track, and then they end up doing quite well.
Yeah, plenty familiar with the track. It's just finding the extra little bit of pace that the boys have got. And not really got into setup on this Merc yet. So we've got plenty to go with the setup, really. That was just standard setup plus a couple of bits, so we've got plenty to go yet.
Yeah, it's good to hear, actually. Yeah, plenty of wiggle room, and if you're already up there, then you can definitely fine-tune that as the season goes on. So Zolder next after the after Christmas, after New Year. So is that a track that you enjoy? I'm not entirely sure if it suits the characteristics of the Merc very well, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I have never turned a lap of Zolder. Never.
You'd be surprised how many haven't, actually, mate. I'm sure some people love it, but it's not a track that I think many people are too familiar with, so you won't be the only one there. But at least you got a good couple of weeks.
I think I've got a knack of learning them quite quickly, to be honest.
Well, that will surely serve you well.
Yeah,
that will definitely serve you well. Well, good stuff, mate. I'm glad you joined us. Good to speak to some new faces, which we haven't seen on the track before. So I always let people give a shout-out before I let them go, if you have anyone that you'd like to give one to.
Yeah, to my brother, GT Jimbo.
Very good.
He's the final moonshiner that's not in this league, unfortunately, but maybe next season.
I was going to say, yeah, to get him in next time.
Definitely.
Get the 3 years in. Right, well, good stuff, Liam. I'm glad that you joined us. And yeah, enjoy the break, enjoy Christmas, New Year, and we'll see you back on track ahead of the second round.
Thank you, sir.
Very good, mate. Enjoy. Cheers. There we go then. Interviews concluded. Rounds 1 and 2 concluded. And we have a little break to go ahead with our Christmas and our New Year's. So let me wrap up and then we will close out for the evening. So, you can, as always, scan the QR code on screen now, and that will take you to the ESR Discord server where you can get involved with all of us over at Evolution Sim Racing. At the moment, we have over 700 members in the server at the moment. I want to give a precise number, but I don't think I've got it in front. Yes, I do. We have 726 members in the league as it stands, so the community grows and grows by the day. As I said earlier, we've brought in at least 60 new drivers into GT3, and of course, you can join us on Monday nights in the new GT4 TCR multi-class series, where we'll have 2 types of cars going head-to-head in what will be an interesting concept, actually, because we haven't seen too much of those cars as we've gone on. We've definitely never had a multi-class season in Evolution Sim Racing before. So you can find myself and Dara Thacker on Monday nights here at Evolution Sim Racing, usually starting around 8 PM, and then the same time on Thursdays for GT3. But we have a good couple of weeks off, so we can enjoy the festive holidays. So, from all of us here, and from me in the comments booth, I appreciate everybody who joined us in the channel. It was a record-breaking attendance for me, which was always nice to see at the start of a new season. And until next time, enjoy Christmas, have a very good New Year, and we'll see you when we arrive for the first round of the TCR GT4 Mixed Class Series.